everybody. Top of the morning, top of the Sunday morning. Welcome, everybody, to The Sweat, a program we bring you here on most Saturday and Sunday mornings, live from 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock Eastern Time on DraftKings Network in Racin. I am your host, Emerson Lazia, surrounded by only Julian Edlow this morning for really the next 2 hours. You are surrounding me. Yeah.
Okay.
How you doing today, man? I miss Steve already.
I don't miss him. I've been knocking baseball winners out of the park the last couple of days, as you've seen.
Yeah, you tweeted out you went 2-0 yesterday in your baseball picks, and tweets started picking up some steam when I said Julian baseball is greater and better than Julian basketball. You had a few other folks chiming in, and baseball is your thing now. That's
true at the moment because basketball is over.
Yeah, but we are going to talk a lot of basketball coming up in
NBA Draft Week.
That's right, NBA Draft Week. We're going to look back at some of the players and teams that help people make the most money and help people lose the most money. As for what else is coming up on this Sunday morning edition of The Sweat, yes, as we have mentioned, the NBA Draft. I don't know what's going to happen with Bronny and the impact there that it could have on LeBron James. Let's talk about it because we never talk about it here on this show. College football bets, I'm very excited for that. You've got a few early season games already on your betting card. You're going to tell us why. And again, looking back on a season that was around the NBA, Julian Edlow, as your Celtics just claimed Banner 18.
Yeah.
So we'll see maybe what you're thinking looking ahead as well. But first, what do you say we pump some iron here? Start working up a sweat, big man. Come on, dude. Let's go. So give me a bet right now. Give me a storyline, something that's cooking between the ears for you. Which direction do you want to take the people at home in right now?
All right, well, let's do this. Steve obviously quit on us for the day, so that eliminates our baseball expert. We'll use some air quotes there. I think I can just fill in fine here.
Yeah.
We'll go to the baseball board. We got to get a couple baseball bets in. It is a Sunday. Everybody plays. We got a full card. We got games starting at 11:35 Eastern. There's a Diamondbacks-Phillies game.
That's like what time the leaders at the Travelers tee off.
Sure. Steve did give out Phillies full game yesterday. I went with the first five and Wheeler to record a win. He did wind up, they blew out in that game. Not as great of a spot today, but you still have Sanchez in a pretty good spot at home. They're like minus 200 favorites. That's a game I don't mind going Phillies first five. Phillies first five, for me, is just kind of near an auto play or something that you want to look at every day and pick your spots where it's like, okay, today's not a Phillies first five day because they've been cooking all season. They're the best first five team in MLB. They're a team Steve and I talked about a lot earlier in the season to win the division, which is now in good shape. So generally when I see the Phillies on the board, I'm looking at them and trying to find a reason not to back them on the first five. I don't see that reason today, so I think we can still do that. It's also Paul Skeens Day, and he has been ridiculous. He's 4-0 with a 2.29 ERA. He gets a Rays team that I'm not very afraid of here. The game's in Pittsburgh. He's going up against Seval, who has, 2-5 with a 5.42 ERA. I know I'm not giving you the Steve Buchanan in-depth numbers here. That's about as far as I have
That's
to
why
look.
we like Steve, because those in-depth numbers back up the bets that he dishes out for us. You got to give us a reason to believe in what you're giving us.
Because I'm eyeballing it, and it looks like a good bet.
Oh, Lord.
This is how you do the baseball. Skeens, I'll go Pirates first five. I think that's another good bet. Just like Phillies, Skeens on the first five has been money so far in his career.
Where's he in the Rookie of the Year markets?
He just, because the kid on the Cubs has gotten smoked. Yeah. Apparently ever since he took that picture at the Cubs game with Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky rookies, his ERA has gone from like 0.84 to like 9. I saw that on Twitter this morning.
I love the internet being like, this is the reason this guy has started sucking.
Yeah, took a picture with Angel Reese, so apparently that's why. But yeah, the other rookie pitchers have not been doing well lately. I think Skeens jumped to an odds-on favorite.
Yeah.
Maybe we can pull that up. But the value there is gone. He had a good value when he came up. You remember we were talking about the season-long strikeout prop?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
How low it was. It went up. He made one start, and his season-long strikeout prop went up like 40, which is ridiculous. What was the other game here? Kyle Freeland, Rockies starting pitcher. He hasn't pitched since April. He made 4 starts to start the season. Gave up 25 runs and we haven't heard from him since. We haven't heard from him in 2 months. They're bringing him back up to pitch at Coors today against a sneaky good little Nationals team. Irvin, solid 3.24 ERA for the Nats. This Nationals minus 125, 130 range seems way too short on this game. I'll just play it on the first 5 because I want to focus on fading Kyle Freeland. We're putting a lot of faith in somebody who got smoked to start the season that he's just going to have it 2 months later. And I know it's the Nationals. It's not like he's going up against a ringer here by any means. But Irvin's been pretty good. So those are the 3 baseball spots that jumped out to me, and I'll just do Steve's job for him.
All right. Well, thank you for doing that. I've been pretty dialed into the Travelers Championship. Went there first round down in Cromwell, Connecticut on Thursday with Howard, who is on our team here behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Followed around Scotty Scheffler and Max Homa.
And you got some underwear.
I did. I got 4 new pairs of underwear from our friends at Saks, so thank you for that. I'm wearing one of the pairs now, and it's a golf pair of underwear, by the way. It has a bunch of like holes of golf and other fun graphics on the underwear.
It didn't sound like the underwear had a bunch of holes, which I was going to say it doesn't sound like great underwear.
So here's the interesting thing here. The top of this leaderboard, by the way, the leaders are going to go off. I mentioned it a couple minutes ago. They're going to go off for a little after 11 o'clock today because they've had a lot of weather issues. There was a 3-hour weather delay yesterday. They're going to try to avoid that. So leaders will probably finish before 4 o'clock today. So that is something right now, if you are watching and you want to bet like some of the matchups or some of these guys towards the top of the leaderboard, they're off here in the next couple hours. So the guys at the top, by the way, Scotty Scheffler and Tom Kim, the reason they are there, they're both very good friends, which is why I do believe Tom Kim eventually wins this thing. It's not going to be the pressure of playing with the world number 1. And they also have Batia in there because they are going off in groups of 3. And he's holding putts with consistency. Tom Kim, he is splitting fairways. He's striking his approach shots extremely close. They both also, and we mentioned it on the show yesterday, ate at Sally's Pizza, which is this epic pizza joint
a big part of your handicap here.
In New Haven. They both share, obviously, the same birthday as well. Yesterday, I gave out little Sung JM because he was 28-1. He's now 12-1. He's 3 shots back. Just because I like that number a lot better. Kim's fellow countryman still ranks 3rd in strokes gained approach, 6th in scrambling through 2 rounds. So if there is a guy who's going to come back and chase these 2 big dogs down at the top of the leaderboard, I'm still sticking with Sung J.M. right now. And Jeff Orwer's going to join us a little later in the show, and he'll give us his thoughts on maybe some props and stuff you can get after before, again, these leaders tee off around 11:30, 11-ish, 11:30 this morning. So should be some great golf. The scores have been really low. I know you're kind of like a casual golfer, but coming off a week in which Pinehurst just
More of a triple digits guy.
Yeah. Again, casual golfer, but Pinehurst chewed these guys up last week, which I enjoy the majors and the way USGA sets up like the PGA and the US Open and all that kind of stuff because it does make these guys a little more relatable. And then I played TPC River Highlands before, and I think I shot like 88 or 90 there. And I'm watching these guys just striping it, and it really makes you appreciate the fact that Tom Kim, if he wins this thing today, which I do think he does, could touch 25 under. I know some golf purists out there are like, I don't want to see these scores. I don't want to see these guys birdieing and eagling every hole and driving some of these drivable par 4s. Screw it, man. It's a nice change of pace after last week, rather, there at Pinehurst. So give it to me. Should be a fun day. It's going to be early. You'll be done about 4 o'clock, and you can go have dinner with your family or do whatever else you like to do on a Sunday night.
Fantastic. Thanks for the golf.
Yeah,
you're
welcome.
I'll wrap us with this because we're going to talk college football later in the show, specifically games from week 1, maybe some games of the year. But yesterday, we talked futures, which we're going to do next week more of. But we talked Liberty on the show, Conference USA.
Yeah,
they're
not
laying
WNBA.
$1.75. They were minus 165 on DK Sportsbook. So I'm just giving it out. Last call, Liberty minus 175. We got other books, notable books that I've noticed pushing to minus 190, minus 200. It's going to get up there. I think Steve asked me, what do you think this should be priced? I said minus 250.
He did ask.
It's going to get to minus 200, and maybe we start seeing minus 220s when the season gets closer. So Liberty, they are going to be double-digit favorites, I believe, 11 times this season, unless something significant changes. And they're going to be underdogs once. Last weekend in September, they go to App State. They're going to be a very short underdog. That's their game of the year, but it doesn't matter. App State isn't in their conference. So this is why, rather than the 10.5 win total, which, if they lose that game to App State, then you got to go perfect. They should go perfect as double-digit favorites the rest of the way, but you don't need that. You just need to get into the conference title game, and you'll have a good price on Liberty in that spot.
Are we thinking they could be like the group of 5 representative in the 12-team playoff now?
Some people feel that way. I think that we'll have more of maybe a one-loss Boise, a one-loss Memphis. I would lean to that team probably proving a lot more. Liberty can go a perfect 12-0, and people can still look at them and say, well, we don't even think you're that good.
Okay. They were able to end up playing in a bowl game last year, right?
They got smoked by Oregon.
Yeah.
I think it was like 45-6.
Weren't they almost like not in a bowl game? Or am I thinking of another team that was like their first year
No, Liberty was firmly in.
Oh, I'm thinking of George.
bowl
Was it
field,
George Mason? No, I can't remember.
You're thinking of James Madison.
James Madison. There you go. Thank you. Okay.
Now send us to commercial.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to break. Again, we're talking a lot more college football coming up, but right after this break, let's do a little NBA season recap, shall we? Well, everybody, not sure if you know this or not, but the NBA season, it's over with. It is done. The Celtics are NBA champions once again for the first time since 2008. Banner 18 will soon be hanging in the rafters there inside TD Garden. Has it sank in yet for you?
I'm not on the team.
You're a massive Celtics fan.
I'm a massive Celtics fan and a massive Celtics bettor, so it was a good night.
Well, speaking of that, looking back on the season that was around the NBA, how about some teams that helped bettors on the DK Sportsbook make the most money? Huh? Do you think the Celtics were on that list, Julian?
Not as high as they should be, as you see right there.
But the team that the Celtics beat, right there, top list, is it a surprise to see the Spurs on here, dude?
Yes. So that's the surprise. Pelicans a little bit too. The Magic were really good against the spread and exceeded expectations this season. So I think the Magic were a really good bet all year long. That makes sense. Dallas is at the top of that list really because of the road they had to go through in the Western Conference.
Well, teams that cost folks the most money, players, bettors on the DK Sportsbook. Wow. The Suns, the Bucks, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Kings. Which one is most surprising to you there on that list, Julian?
I mean, I guess the top of that list makes a ton of sense. I guess the Kings, because why are people putting so much faith in the Kings? But the Kings were the 3 seed last year. So, and then they failed to make the playoff this year. They get eliminated in the play.
The team with like the laser beam, right? Like the laser or something? Light the beam?
All right, old man.
Freaking laser beams, man.
Trying to relate to the kids here. Light the beam. Yeah, they weren't lighting the beam as much this year as they had in past years. Hello, fellow kids.
Fellow kids. That's me walking around DK, by the way.
Yeah, I would say Kings, but everybody else on there makes sense. Like the Suns were supposed to win the West with that mega team. Bucks, huge letdown. So those were 2 teams right there. Like Bucks, Suns, finals rematch. A lot of people had that, and not even close.
So, your opinion, which team on that list is most likely to go from underachieving and costing players the most money to maybe actually achieving and meeting expectations and helping bettors on the DK Sportsbook make money? What do you expect?
That's a tough one because I don't think the Suns really have a direction. The Bucks might help people when they get healthy. They'll have a chance, but I still think Milwaukee's overrated. I think at full health the Celtics are still a lot better than the Bucks. The Warriors are aging and up there. I don't think they're going to wind up turning the corner.
What are they going to do with Clay, by the way? Is Clay going to?
Clay's going to be gone. I would assume.
Okay.
Somebody's going to pay him.
Because I saw a report earlier this week they could come to like some agreement and try to keep him around, stick around, keep the band together.
They'll try, but is it going to come down to somebody else giving too much money? Where Golden State, it's like we can't come in that range.
Okay.
Clippers are falling apart. Paul George is going to leave. Kawhi gets hurt every year. So it's like all those teams make sense, and it's hard to pick one. So I guess like how the Kings were the biggest surprise, I'll say the Kings have the best chance of turning around and making people money because now that they had a bad season, they're going to be looked at as a poor team again in a lot of people's eyes and be underpriced maybe to start next year.
Yeah, and if you ask Joel Embiid, Paul George is going to be a 76er. You remember the little side eye there on the ESPN broadcast?
That's tampering.
Yeah, that is tampering. I don't have to worry about it. It's not my team.
No, you don't. We're allowed to talk about it.
Speaking of...
That could be a landing spot for him.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of players, though, how about some of the players that underachieved, some of the players that may have cost some folks some money here? LeBron is on that list, Julian. So do we expect a bounce back from LeBron James in this upcoming season? Okay, wow. You see Jason Tatum is also on that list. Wow, Jokic is on that list as well. Then Anthony Davis, Devin Booker. So what? Go ahead and say
Here's the thing. No, we don't have to expect a bounce back from LeBron because LeBron didn't have a bad year. None of those guys had bad years. Those are all the best players in the NBA.
Okay, so then what? Then it doesn't necessarily speak to their individual performances. Then how do they land on this list?
This is just who lost bettors the most money. So with those guys losing bettors the most money, what it really means is that people like to bet props on stars, on studs, and that the more the more handle that you generate there, the more losing tickets you're going to have there. So a lot of those guys may have also won bettors the most money, but in terms of...
But they didn't because they're on the list that they lost
bettors the most money. By handle, though.
Okay.
So that's just the amount of handle lost on each of those players.
So that's just the public being the public?
Yeah, it means people like to bet on LeBron James, and the more people bet on LeBron James, the more the losses are going to add up.
I've never bet on LeBron James.
Congratulations.
But you know what?
Didn't contribute to that list.
I'll be betting Bronny when he's out there because I know Dad's just going to be feeding him the rock the entire time.
Now you already got him as teammates.
Yeah, I certainly do.
Okay.
I listen
Seems
to
like
what
you have some
LeBron
inside draft
says.
info.
Good friend of the program, DK teammate. Overachieving teams this season. You had teams like the Cavs. You had teams like the Magic here. They're on the playoff moneymaker list. Okay? So with these teams here, Jules, which ones? Okay, the Celtics, that's not a surprise.
So the Celtics win it all. That clearly makes a lot of sense. The next two, though, that is really interesting because the Cavs and Magic played each other in the first round. It went 7 games. So the fact that the Magic lost their first round series and yet did so well for bettors.
So were people betting against them?
No, because that's money that people would make on the Cavs.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
People literally making money on the Magic, just betting them in those home games. That I believe the home team won all 7 games. That series.
That was a fun fact in that series.
Orlando came out and looked pretty good in Game 7, and then Cleveland ran away with it in the second half.
And is Donovan Mitchell going to be on the Cavs again?
That's a good question. That's not a. I wouldn't say that's a given.
I've got a lot of good questions in this segment here, homie.
Yeah, you're not doing bad.
All right. Well, let's look at some most improved player splits here,
Sure.
Jules, because Maxey got the award. But who else? Who else, Jules? Who is going to make a Brunson, Maxey, Edwards, SGA type leap next?
Yeah, and you see the list right there. I think it could be. I might have been a year early on Kuminga. I had some Jonathan Kuminga at 60-1.
I remember that. I remember
year.
you being very high on him.
Now, he flashed, but he never put it all together for that long of a stretch. He had like one really good month and then kind of regressed a little. I think next year, we just talked about Klay potentially on the way out. The Warriors are kind of adapting. They're trying to get younger while keeping Curry at the helm. Draymond's still going to be a piece, but I think there's some moving parts there where, yes, Curry's still going to carry the offense. Klay Thompson's no longer the 2. Wiggins hasn't been the guy. I think I think this is a great opportunity for Kuminga to step right into that number 2 and play alongside Steph Curry, and I think we might see that next year. So again, I don't think the Warriors are going to be the 1 seed. I don't think they're going to win the title. They'll be a threat, but I think Jonathan Kuminga. A lot of times people get afraid to bet guys that were in the mix this year. We got to look for the new, fresh batch of guys next year that people aren't thinking of. A lot of times it's that guy that was just right beneath it and couldn't quite get there. I think Jonathan Kuminga is going to have a great year.
What about playoff moneymakers here, Jules? You've got some of the young studs and stars who are playing their first season in the league here. Chet Holmgren is on that list. You see Luka is on there because he was just going off. Didn't he set like a playoff record for points scored? I think in like a postseason. He set a bunch of.
He led the playoffs in points, rebounds, assists, and steals.
Yeah, pretty insane. Jalen is on there, who was the Finals MVP. Is a guy like Wemby going to be next on the playoff moneymaker list?
Soon. We'll see if San Antonio's in contention next year, but Wemby's a guy, and those guys on that list make plenty of sense. Holmgren, I guess, may be a little surprising. Wemby's a guy you can look at a lot of ways next year. I know we have MVP up on the board already at DraftKings, priced for next season. Is he going to win MVP? Probably not, but I wouldn't draw the line through Wemby. I would include him in guys that I would consider betting. I would consider betting him for most improved. We just talked about most improved with Kuminga. I would consider betting him for most improved. And Defensive Player of the Year is not on the board yet. I'm hearing that he could populate somewhere in the 4-1 range, plus 400. Okay. That is going to get gobbled up all summer, and he's going to close far shorter than that. Those are three markets, I think, that you could bet Wembanyama in and make a real argument. Obviously, with the strongest one, the strongest case probably being Defensive Player of the Year, where I thought he should have won last year. And didn't quite get there. Gobert won. Wemby finished second. He's going to be in the mix for that award every year of his career.
Yeah. Yeah, we could see those two in the mix for MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. They are just getting started.
He can do one of those Jordan years where you win MVP and DPOY.
Wow.
Wouldn't
Glory
surprise me if he
days.
had one of those years.
Just getting started. We're just getting started here on the Sweat. We're only 2 blocks in, so we've got about 6 more to go. And right after this 242nd break, we're going to hear from Quinn Ewers, who joined Gojo and Golick earlier this week, and we'll get some of Jules' early best bets for the early games.
kind of going into that league, the difference of the Big 12 to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference. And I think one of the biggest differences is just the the defenses. You know, we Big 12 and Iowa State, the big joker teams that we are not going to be seeing as much. I know Arkansas does it, but you know, I'm excited to get to see a little bit more of a normal structure on defenses instead of all that crazy stuff that the Big 12 likes to pull out. But you know, like I said earlier, we're excited. I've always wanted to be a part of the SEC. I just feel like it means a lot, and we're all fired up to be a part of it. It's like that, just the deep South football, you know.
Certainly, I think that they would tell you it just means more down there. So you're already right on brand.
All right, Quinn Ewers joining our friends with the Gojo and Golic show earlier this week, which you can watch here on DraftKings Network Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Watch it here, watch it on YouTube. So talking to Quinn Ewers, quarterback there for Texas, Jules, and the SEC now welcoming Texas and Oklahoma to the group of contenders means that two additional powerhouses now are faces of a league that saw its lengthy reign atop college football end last season at the hands of Michigan. Just how fun is it going to be, though, to watch SEC football with these two new additions? It seems like week in and week out, every game has never meant more than it does now.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I did prefer it when there were more conferences with more meaning. So like the Pac-12 was the conference last year. So to see that go is sad. To see how the Big 12 restructures here. Now they got my Utes are like the team in the Big 12, and you got Texas and Oklahoma going into the SEC. It's going to be weird. It's going to be different. It's going to take some adjusting. But you know, when you think college football, one of the first programs you think of is Texas. So now to have them in the premier conference, and again, one of the games of the year, probably the game of the year in college football, just sticking to regular season, is going to be when Georgia goes to Austin on Saturday, October 19th. Yeah. That's going to be Texas's big, even though it's a home game, welcome to the SEC moment, going up against a pissed-off Georgia team for going 12-0 regular season and not getting in because they lost that SEC championship game to Bama. I like Georgia in that one if you want to bet some game of the years already.
Yeah, so like that first Red River shootout with an SEC logo on it will feature a Sooners team facing a tough schedule. And then that Texas side, as you've already kind of mentioned, will have already played at Michigan. And then we'll host Georgia the week following. Yep. So it is going.
A lot of games.
A lot of games. And Quinn Ewers and Texas returning some elite talent to test OU's defensive improvements there. Other games that stand out to you early on, you've given producer Drew about 3 or 4 of them. And the first one on this list, Julian, is going to be Minnesota and UNC. So we're looking at some early games here on the schedule.
Thursday night football for week 1 here. UNC at Minnesota.
Week 1 or week 0?
This is week 1.
Okay.
So week 0 is that earlier weekend in August, and then this is Thursday, August 29th. Gotcha. So it's 2 days ahead of the big Saturday week 1 card. This one's moving. Minnesota opened a short home dog, and I bet them. I gave this out at Minnesota laying 1.5. It's now moved another half point. Minnesota -2. Anything with Minnesota getting less than 3 here, I'm good with. I think they should be favored by over a field goal. Not a great Minnesota team. I think their win total's 5.5. They're not going to terrify you, but they're going to play defense. They're going to run the ball. They bring back a lot of experience. This is a top 20 team in terms of experience in the country. UNC ranks in the bottom 15 teams in terms of returning talent. So this is a young UNC team that loses their stud quarterback in Drake May, going out on the road for a Thursday national TV primetime game against a Minnesota team that wants to play defense and run the ball. UNC might have a decent year in the ACC. I'm not wild about them, but this is a really tough way to start the season. Give me the Golden Gophers here.
And then you also have your eye on West Virginia and Penn State. So these two played last year. Penn State beating West Virginia in the 2023 season opener, 38-15 here. That was the first time these two historic programs had faced off in decades. Remember, it ended in controversy little bit too, because instead of taking a knee at the end of the game,
James Franklin
ran
the cover play.
Yeah, it was like, no, we'll go ahead and we'll get like one more touchdown. So West Virginia is going to be absolutely pissed off in this game.
Oh yeah, love me some Mountaineers here at home. This was 12. We're down to 10. I played it at 10.5. Like getting the hook there. We'll see if we get it back. But anything 10 or better, give me the Mountaineers at home here. This West Virginia team won 9 games last year and brings back a ton of talent. They have one of the better offensive lines in the nation here, and they bring back a very veteran group there. Again, they went to Penn State in week 1. They hung around in that game. Penn State, literally, James Franklin made the decision, we want to cover this game at the end in order to run in and score a touchdown at the end of that game. West Virginia will have that on their minds. They'll be at home. They're coming off a really good season with a lot of good players coming back. Penn State's going to be really good this year. They lost some talent as well, but this is a really tough way to start the season on the road for Penn State. Penn State probably grinds it out, but I think West Virginia is going to have a chance in this game, and if they have a chance to win it, they should be able to keep it within double digits.
And then LSU and USC here, Jules. The only college football game that will be happening on September 1st. It'll have a national primetime audience tuned into this matchup of two of the biggest brands in collegiate athletics, also from Sin City here.
Yeah.
Before I started diving into numbers on this game, I came across other stories about what USC was trying to dodge LSU, like in this opener. What's that about?
I don't know exactly why USC would try and squirm out of an LSU matchup. I would assume you want to play good schools and you have a good offense. Should be a team that you can put up points against.
There's a little bit more room for
last year.
There's a little bit more room for error too with the expanded playoff, and like say even if it's a close loss, it doesn't look terrible on your resume.
Both teams should want an opportunity at a win like this. Sunday night Vegas game, prime time. LSU got the Sunday night primetime game last year. They lost to FSU. If you remember that one. The last 2 years, actually, was FSU, LSU in this opener. Now you get USC from Vegas. I'm going to just put this out here to get ahead of this one. I don't have a side in the game. I think LSU is the better team. They should be favored by right around what they are. Total's going to pop up in the 66 range, I believe, for this game. That's an over when it opens. It's going to move, so keep an eye out for that. I would bet it early. LSU, even without Jaden Daniels, they're getting solid quarterback play in there, and they still have a pretty explosive offense. They brought in some running backs, pretty good running game. And the USC defense, as we all know from watching that last year.
Oh, my God, terrible.
Not good at all. So LSU should still be able to put up points there. And on the flip side, if you watched USC play in their bowl game last year without Caleb Williams, a man by the name of Miller Moss came in and threw, I believe, 6 touchdowns against a solid Louisville
in the Holiday
defense.
Bowl. Yep.
Louisville's got a solid defense. That was pretty impressive. Team seemed to rally around him. So I think USC's offense, as always with Lincoln Riley, they're going to be humming. LSU's defense didn't play very well in the SEC by SEC standards last year. So I think there's the potential for a lot of points in Vegas in that game.
What's the potential for points with Boston College and FSU? So this will be the last game of that week, the night
Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football, Labor Day.
Yep.
And these two will be laboring.
They will be laboring. And I think the Eagles are going to labor hard enough to lose by less than 22 points.
Whoa!
Give me BC plus 22.
Well, FSU's got a new quarterback now, right?
FSU's got a new quarterback. Keon Coleman also out of the mix. He's on the Bills. Jared Verse, the MVP of that Seminoles defense in the NFL. FSU's still going to be really good. And they're at home here against BC. But remember, FSU probably should have lost in Chestnut Hill last year. They just squeaked that game out against the Eagles on the road. BC, you got Bill O'Brien at the helm. He does wonders with quarterbacks. Tom Castellanos, the BC quarterback, is back. One of the better running quarterbacks in the nation. He can really run the ball, and if Bill O'Brien can get him going passing, this team got some pieces in that I don't mind. The offensive line, the receivers, that should all have improved. The worst part, the biggest hole of BC's team last year was their ability to rush the passer. They were terrible at that. They've put a lot into improving that. We'll see if those pieces play out or not. But if BC can get pressure on the quarterback in this game, keeping it within 3 touchdowns seems pretty reasonable.
I know you didn't touch on it. We got to go to break here, but North Dakota State at Colorado has my attention because I do think
has your attention.
North Dakota State is going to beat Colorado outright. You heard
What's
it
the spread
here
there?
first.
You got a
I don't
number?
have the spread. I was just looking at other intriguing games. But yeah, go ahead.
Right, nothing like
Let's
giving
go,
a bet
babe.
without a number.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it almost sounds like you dishing out your baseball bats. Wow. Okay, we got
I have the numbers.
We got to take a break, everybody. We got to take a break. And coming up on the other side, y'all know what time it is. Rubbin is racing. Max Verstappen. Has the man and Red Bull lost their fastball? Let's talk to Pierce Dietrich next. Rubbin is Racin, baby. And Pierce Dietrich of DraftKings Network, he is here to take us on a sports betting journey and DFS journey ahead of what's sure to be another thrilling Sunday around F1 and NASCAR. Pierce, I got to say it. I like your haircut. I think you look great. Is that your summer haircut?
Yeah, the long hair was unmanageable.
Yeah, the heat can sometimes do that for sure. Maybe you can help us build a manageable betting card here, Pierce, because we have the Spanish Grand Prix kicking off a 3-week stretch of Formula One racing across Europe. So this one gets going here pretty soon, 9 o'clock Eastern time, Pierce, this morning. And don't look now or do, Pierce, but Red Bull and Max Verstappen have been challenged a little more lately by other teams. Can you please tell me why that is?
It's circuit specific. You know, Monaco is Monaco. Like, if you qualify first, you win the race. So that's pretty much it. And you look at Miami, where Verstappen didn't win. It was, again, a street circuit. So we're going back to a traditional track at Spain. So no real worries here. We're going to go back to the norm. We were already back to the norm last week with his Canada win. So, yeah, nothing really much to say. It's Verstappen.
All right, so he has not lost his fastball, Pierce.
Well, they're not as fast. I will give credit to the competitors, but there's still a gap.
Okay, so who would you say then is going to be his biggest challenger this weekend, and why?
No one.
No one? So we're doing another one of those things where it's Max is the only guy who can stop himself. Come on, give me somebody else.
But we say the same thing every time. I come on and say no one can challenge him, and no one challenges him. Look, if you want to play around with it, sure, McLaren is probably the number 2 team this season. Mercedes made some significant upgrades at Canada, and they look good in free practice 1 and free practice 2 in Spain. Ferrari will likely bounce back. They had a disappointing race at Canada, and maybe you could chalk that up to weather or mechanical failures. But still, at the end of the day, yes, those teams are better. Yes, those teams are competitive, but there's Max, and then there's everyone else, and I say it every time, and I'm right every time.
Yeah, you are, Pierce, which is why we bring you on this show, and you are part of the Rubbin is Racing segment, because you are always right. And
yes.
I need you to answer this for me then, because I know Lewis Hamilton's no longer that dominant force that he used to be here. He's looking for a record-setting 7th victory at the Spanish Grand Prix. So he's coming off a strong run north of the border here, Pierce. So I'm looking at the stats now. Top 6 runs in 3 of the last 4 races, not to mention finished 2nd here in Barcelona last season. How about, though, if we're thinking a little bit outside the box, what do you think about a podium finish for him? I think those odds were at plus 450 at one point, which would mark his first podium finish of the season.
Yeah, earlier in the season, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah,
but
thank you for not doing that.
No, yeah, I'm not going to laugh at you. Yeah, well, he is a lame duck driver. He's moving over to Ferrari at the end of the season. Mercedes is not really that invested in him at the moment, but you know, Mercedes has made some significant upgrades, and as I mentioned earlier, he was on top of the charts in free practice number 2. So you could kind of trick yourself into believing that this will be a Lewis Hamilton week. But look, the reality is McLaren is still fast. Ferrari is going to bounce back. Sergio Perez is going to bounce back. There are just so many fast drivers already that are sandwiched between Lewis and Max that we love the storyline, but you know, I just can't buy in. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Do you think it's been awkward, like with him and the team throughout the season, knowing like he's going to be taken off after the year?
I don't think awkward completely sells what we're talking about. I mean, working for a team that's probably intentionally hiding data from you, intentionally not giving you the best car. It's not like, oh, I'm leaving it. It's not like you just quit your job and you got that 2 weeks notice and everybody's kind of weird to you.
Yeah.
Like, they're completely like you're not allowed in this meeting. You can't see this information. Just go sit over there. That's kind of the feel that I get.
Okay. All right. So my guess is when I ask you about other props you're feeling for this one, Lewis Hamilton doesn't sound like he's going to be part of that.
No, probably not. If you want to talk about props, I don't know if I want to give you a specific prop.
Okay.
But a thing that I would like to tell people is like, yeah, Max always wins these races, but what you can do is bet on free practice 1. You can bet on free practice 2 or qualifying where Max isn't always the guarantee. So if you want to actually win some money, you're probably not betting on the races. But what you can do is start jumping in on Friday morning, Saturday morning, and betting the free practices and the qualifying. And there's tons of great analytical, comprehensive data out there if you just scour the internet. So that would be my advice. Start betting the practices.
Or just following you on Twitter because you're just full of information.
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Pierce. Let's make our way to the Barcelona of New England, shall we? We're talking about Loudon, New Hampshire, where NASCAR hits the magic mile, Pierce, for the USA Today 301. This is shorter. It's a flatter track. What's the course strategy for betting? What's the course strategy for DFS? You tell me.
Well, for DFS, this is a short track, 301 laps. So you've got to nail the driver that leads the most laps, runs the most fast laps. And typically we see one driver do that. And typically that one driver starts towards the front of the race. And also typically that guy's been Martin Truex Jr. over the last 2 seasons, 150 fantasy points last year, 100 the year before that. So that would be where you would start. And then building the rest of your lineup. Then you're looking at, drivers that are going to run around the top 5. They're going to scrape off a couple fast laps here or there, get a top 5 finish. And then as far as like the value goes, we would like to pretend that the value drivers are going to be guys that are fast in practice. But the practice data can be misleading because of the different group sessions. But also, tires don't wear here. So we're going to see guys that run long. We're going to see different pit road strategies. So your value pick might seem a little random in the end. So don't be completely married to fast practice times. Just go for it, and don't be afraid to go outside the box and take a car that you don't necessarily believe in, but might just guess the strategy correctly.
Speaking of like not being afraid, just what's your opinion since we're approaching midway point of the season and got playoff implications going to be a major factor here in upcoming races? Do you expect guys like a Martin Truex Jr. or like a Joey Logano, some of these dudes starting to take bigger risks out there, be a little more aggressive, trying to get that first win of the year?
No, I don't think so. I think the opposite. It's that midpoint of the season where they're just kind of out there churning and burning. If Truex has the car, he'll do what he's got to do. He's not going to do anything wild or random, and he doesn't need to. And most of the drivers at the top, JGR, Penske, Hendrick, they're all pretty solid. And we're also putting a little bit too much into the actual playoff system. Yep. So I don't think they'd really care that much. If they got the car, then they're going to go for the win. If they don't have the car, then they'll just settle for what they got.
Yeah, I will say, as kind of a casual NASCAR fan, it is difficult to follow the constant changes and rules for the postseason, throughout the year, man. Just simplify it, for crying out loud. Your top DFS choice, who's it going to be?
You got to go with Truex. Bell would be right there in second, who's been really good in the Xfinity Series and also has a cup win here. JGR, Toyotas have been strong. Penske has been heating up of late. But since they're going to get a lot of the attention, I wouldn't mind going towards Hendrick, who has really good pit crews. And if we're talking about pit strategy and just staying in the top 5, really like Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, who are kind of a little bit off the grid. Everyone wants Truex. Everybody wants Bell. Penske's hot. This might be the week where, Hendrick kind of sneakily doesn't lead a lot of laps, doesn't run a lot of fast laps, but after a couple cautions at the end, they come away with the win.
All right, how far off the grid are you going to go when I ask you about a prop here for this race on the DK Sportsbook?
Actually, it's not that far off the grid, and I'm really surprised for whatever reason. The sportsbook loves Denny Hamlin this week. Denny Hamlin's not really running all that well. His pit crew's not really doing all that well. But sportsbook loves him. They have him as one of the favorites, which is surprising. They have him as a favorite to beat Chase Elliott. And so if you take Chase Elliott in a straight up head-to-head, you're getting plus money. And Elliott has been absolutely awesome. He's having one of his best seasons ever. He's headed in the right direction. He's got the best pit crew. I don't understand this. Give me Elliott in the head-to-head matchup against Hamlin. I think this is just a mistake by the sportsbook.
Okay. Pierce Dietrich, very quickly, who is your guy to win this thing? Visit the winner's circle.
Elliott. Got to go with Elliott. I think it's a surprise winner. Not on a lot of, a lot of people's radars, but I'll take it.
All right, Pierce Dietrich. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, my friend. Again, love the haircut. And for those of you clamoring from some NBA draft conversation, we got a segment for you. Julian Edlow returns with some of his projections, how to bet him ahead of the first round Wednesday night. everybody. Back here on The Sweat as we kick off the second hour here, and we've covered quite a bit in the first hour, Jules. What has been your favorite part so far?
My favorite part has been talking college football because, as you would use a transition like this, talking about college football gets me excited for college football.
Yeah, it certainly does. You're a big basketball guy too, which is,
I am.
Basketball is kind of now in the rear view mirror, which is why you've become a baseball guy. Went 2-0 yesterday, everybody, on his baseball bats.
True.
But basketball will be back in the
That's how I want to be
conversation.
remembered.
Yeah.
2-0 MLB card.
That's exactly how you will be remembered in my eyes, buddy. NBA draft arrives this week, okay? It's expected to be a mess. For some reason, they decided to do a 2-night event. So, first round on Wednesday.
Yep.
Second round on Thursday here. And with no clear-cut number one pick, it may not be the most exciting here, Jules, in the lead-up and throughout the two-day event. But ironically, the lack of talent right now and the uncertainty throughout actually makes this, in my opinion, a sports bettor's dream. Now, I have read that some GMs out there hate this draft because with it, their job security may take a beating a little bit here.
Yep.
So, what do you think about that when I'm reading these anonymous quotes from guys who are like, this sucks, I don't know who I'm going to pick, and it could end up in the end getting me fired?
Yeah, I mean, you got to temper your expectations. The draft is what it is. The players are what they are. If you whiff on a pick and, there's 3 all-stars that go behind you, then sure, maybe your job should be on the line. But you got to look at what was on the board. And in a class like this, I think a lot of teams are going to miss, and then look at the guys that were in consideration that went behind them and say, well, you know what? There wasn't really much there.
And the uncertainty with this draft starts right at the top.
Yeah.
Number one overall. This is an information-based betting market. So right now, which way would you lean for number one overall pick?
Well, you said it's a bettor's dream, but, for a draft to be a bettor's dream, you essentially have to have information. And the information isn't out there.
Wow. Okay,
this
pal.
year. It's a weird team to have number one, too, Atlanta, because what are they going to do with the Trae Young, DeJounte Murray combination? Do they want to guard or not? It looks like they're leaning more towards one of these international bigs, but, they have Okongwu, they have Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter's kind of a stretch big in the current NBA. So Sarr was a huge favorite for the number one pick. You see he's plus 450 now. He won't work out for Atlanta, so we're assuming it's not him. Zachary Riziger has been the guy that's opened up into the favorite. Those are supposed to be the 2 best prospects in this class. Klingon would be a weird first pick for me. A big at his size that it's just a weird position to use a number one pick on in this day and age. If there's a draft you do it in, it's this one because there's not much there. I have Castle at 50-1. I'm still okay at 30-1 because we don't have any information. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Hawks plan to move on from Murray or Young and looked to bring in a player who's really a do-it-all player like Stephon Castle. Only thing that was down was his 26% three-point shooting at UConn. He can do it all on the court on both ends of the floor outside of that. And he shot over 75% from the free throw line. So I assume he can fix that shot, develop that shot at the NBA level, and be a good player. So I think 30-1, given we know nothing, is worth something on Stephon Castle. And you see his draft prop there is at 5.5. I put it out in my best bets article on DK Network, under 5.5 for Castle. It was minus 115 at the time. That's starting to get juiced up and take some money. To me, I think the Spurs can't pass up on Castle at 4 if he's there to pair him with Wembanyama. Yeah,
and there are multiple ways to attack the NBA draft from a betting perspective on the DraftKings Sportsbook. It kind of makes sense that you like under 5.5 for Castle because you like Castle going number one overall. Which other top 5 bet do you like?
There's another, again, you're going to see a lot of international men of mystery atop the...
This is when the casuals start acting like, they'll have a hissy fit on Twitter about someone that they've never watched more than like 30 seconds of highlights over.
Somebody that you've watched 0 seconds of highlights of is Matas Buzelis.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
one of your favorite players in the class,
Love this guy.
right?
I already have his jersey. Where's he going, though, so I know which jersey to buy?
I don't know, but he's going to go in the top 5, I believe, because I bet him under 5.5 and put that in my article. Again, this is tough. I don't know much about the kid. What I am hearing and what I'm gathering from looking at the mock drafts is that he has a pretty decent chance to go in the top 5 and that scouts like him. So is he going to go 1? No. Is he going to go 2? Almost certainly not. But depending on how the first couple picks shake out, 3, 4, 5 are all pretty live, and 5 is a very common landing spot for him in a handful of mock drafts to the Pistons, who obviously land at number 5 again. Rough draft lottery for the Pistons. But Buzelis is a guy that could potentially fit there. So I think that's kind of your little safety net to fall into the top 5 on him.
All right, so outside of the top 5, let's go to the top 10 here, Mr. Edlow. And it looks like you've got a smorgasbord of selections for this one. And what I mean by smorgasbord is about 3.
So I went over on some guys. So these aren't actually top 10 guys to go in there, but some overs on guys that are 9.5. 2 guys that I bet there. One is Rob Dillingham, who I talked about on the show yesterday. You see that he's minus 170 to go in the top 10, so he's favored to go there. I took him over 9.5. This kid opened 5.5, got all the way up to 9.5. I saw him in a mock draft that I was looking at before the show going 19. He is great shooter, great scorer from Kentucky. You probably saw him. He is severely undersized, and he cannot play a lick of defense. So the scoring is fantastic. He can be a little spark plug off the bench, get you some points. But defensively, he is a liability, and he's really starting to slide.
No one plays defense in the NBA, dude.
Some people do.
That's true.
Rob Dillingham.
I mean, it's
Rob Dillingham doesn't, and that's why he's not going to be in the top 9 in this draft, so I bet him over. I did the same thing with Nikola Topic, who, versatile international player, which is a theme in this draft. They're getting looked at for some high picks, but discovered in one of his workouts that he had a partially torn ACL, which I think should lead to a little bit of a slide there.
Well, since we're on the topic of conversation, you've got one more top 10 bet, but this one you're going under on Cody Williams. Why is that?
Yeah, Cody Williams, you see, you can't really bet him top 10 anymore because he's minus 3 something, but his draft position prop is 8.5. So go in the top 8 rather than the top 10. He should be able to sneak in there and, flirt with the 5th, 6th pick. I think he can get down that low. But 8 still feels good to me. This is a kid that opened 12.5, took some serious under money. But he was in the discussion for the number 1 pick at times this season. Athletic, 6'8" wing, plays both sides of the ball at Colorado. Fell off the map at times. He would just kind of disappear in games, but that's what happens with some of these freshmen playing college basketball in a good conference. They can disappear at times. So if you can just focus in on the pluses and the ceiling of a guy like Cody Williams, he fits very well in today's NBA as a versatile wing.
For those of us not as dialed into college basketball as you are, can you help the people at home right now watching? Give us maybe another guy or two who's not yet on the board, who you would recommend keeping an eye out for when it comes to props here. Help us get an edge.
Well, guess what? We've actually put a lot more guys on the board over the last 24 hours since we set this segment up. So I don't even have to really create those guys. We've got the board up right now. If we scroll through it a little bit, Devin Carter was a guy that I liked an under on. He took a lot of money. Under 10.5 at minus 170 is about as far as I would go. I think I saw him to go top 10 on the top 10 board at minus 200. So we have a little price differential here. I think Devin Carter should be a top 10 pick. We also have McCain from Duke, probably the best shooter in the draft, and coming out after his freshman year. If this is such a weak class and you have an elite shooter like Jared McCain, I would think teams would put a premium on that. Him going top 15. Again, this is more of a gut call than information based. But Jared McCain feels like a guy that should go top 15 when you have such a valuable skill like shooting in such a weak draft class. It just feels like somebody should take a chance there.
All right. Which props in terms of matchups are you going to take a chance on? So there are matchups available on the DK Sportsbook, and you could bet which one of the two dudes who are up against each other will be drafted first.
Yeah, I haven't bet any quite yet, but a couple are jumping out to me that I might jump on. You see the first one on the board. Cody Williams. I don't know how to say this other prospect's name. I just see him on mock drafts. You want to take a guess? You shouldn't. You can't spell that.
I call him T. I'm like, that's my boy T.
Yeah, T. Saloon, it looks like. Cody Williams minus 175 there. Like I said, Cody Williams has a chance to go 5-6 in this draft. I think he's a prospect that somebody is going to take a chance on pretty early. And then I mentioned how I see Rob Dillingham potentially really falling in this draft. It's an interesting matchup because he goes head-to-head with another guy that I took over 9.5 in Topic. But I think Topic, due to his size, 6'7", versatility, he's probably going to go earlier in this draft, and you got him there at even money. Dillingham's favored in that head-to-head, so that's one that I would take plus money on Topic. And then the other one, Misi from Baylor, Clint Capella type, big, good shooting touch, better shooting touch than you would expect. He's minus 190 to go ahead of Kyle Filipowski from Duke, who I think is really going to slide.
All right, again, folks, DraftKings Sportsbook, tons of betting markets to check out ahead of the first round of the NBA draft on Wednesday. Stick around. We're going to dive into the NHL betting markets, Game 7 tomorrow night. Jeff Ulrich, super oiled up. He joins us next.
Oil up.
Are they feeling the pressure? Can we say that?
Well, it's hard to know, right? You guys know, you both played at a high level. It's hard to know what's in people's heads and hearts and minds. But I think they definitely looked a little off in Game 4. Tonight now, you got all the momentum for Edmonton. This place is always right down the street. This beautiful arena, Rogers Place, is always wild. And I can't imagine what it's going to be like tonight after they thought their team might get swept. And, now here they are for a Game 6. And if they could force it back to a Game 7, that would be amazing. It would be historic, right? We've talked a lot about this is the 29th time that a series started 3-0 in the Stanley Cup final. Only once has the team that was down 3-0 rallied to win the Stanley Cup, and that was in 1942. So if they could win tonight and have a chance to do that on Monday in Florida, it would be amazing.
That was Sean McDonough, everybody, on Gojo and Golick on Friday. That was ahead of Game 6. He's talking about team with the most pressure on it. We know what has happened up to this point as the Oilers are one win away from a Stanley Cup title, a historic comeback, and the first Canadian championship in 31 years. You know who is just as oiled up as the Oilers right now is a man who calls Edmonton home. Jeff Ulrich joining us live here on a Sunday morning edition of The Sweat. We talked to you a little bit yesterday morning, Jeff, just hours after your team forced a decisive Game 7. You've had some time to think about it, Jeff. You've had some time to let it cook in your head. Your anxiety is at an all-time high. How are you feeling now this morning, at about 36 hours or so from puck drop for Game 7?
I'm feeling just like I did yesterday. I'm pretty sure that I feel very confident that the Oilers are going to close this game out.
Yes.
Nothing against the Florida Panthers, but it has gone. Everything has gone against them. And again, like we just heard the clip. Are they feeling a little bit nervous? Sure, both teams are feeling nervous, but it's just a different kind of nerves. What is an absolute just like what is going on here? Trying to find questions to answers to questions that they don't have, and the Oilers just coming in with a big bag of confidence and still probably playing a little bit like the team that has nothing to lose. I know that now the Stanley Cup is in the building, but this is a team that was down 0-3. That psychology is still lingering. Like we're just playing here for one day at a time. It's still do or die. So nothing's changed for the Oilers, whereas everything has changed for the Panthers. And that really worries me just from a fact, like a team psychology standpoint. So no, I got nothing to change in my pick. The odds are still just looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook, still slightly in favor of Edmonton at -108. They're very slight underdogs. But as I said yesterday, the money was slightly moving on Edmonton now. And it's not shocking. The sharp money had been coming in on the Panthers the last 3 games. It feels like everyone has just finally realized, this series was really close, even though it was 3-0. And now the Oilers have been dominating and they've gotten better goaltending. And maybe they're the side to be on. So, Still like Edmonton.
I know you do. So we're thinking Edmonton money line there. In terms of the game total, Jeff, it seems like a lot of people here will be leaning on the under. I think a lot of that is because these teams maybe will be a little tight. They're not going to want to take too many offensive risks with Lord Stanley on the line. And there is a historic betting trend, Jeff, that agrees with me there. So since 2005, under bets, 43, 26, and 9 in Game 7 of the NHL playoffs. So this means betting this under has been profitable, Jeff, in over 60% of Game 7s, talking just the past 2 decades here. Is that the way you would lean in this game?
So again, it's a good stat, over 60%. The problem is, to go under 5.5, you're getting -148. There's really just, at this point, you would say there's just not really any value. You're talking implied probabilities. If this was at -110, sure, I'd be firing at it right now. But the thing is, this is a really short line, and you could absolutely, just play the trend. But this has already been bet down. Like if you got it early, even at like -120, you're obviously feeling good about that bet. But let's not forget about the fact, we have seen a bunch of overs in this series. The Oilers won 8-1. The last game snuck to the over. And you can say, wow, it was just empty net goals, Jeff. But Like, what do you think the Panthers are going to do if they're down 3-1 with 5 minutes to go again? They're going to pull their goalie really early. You've got to survive that late barrage. You've got to survive potentially 5 minutes of an empty net in like a 3-1 game again. So I'm not going to touch the under here at -148. If anything, if I was looking to make an over bet, I may combine it with like an Oilers goal prop or like, correlate it with like a money line bet. Try and go that route instead. I just think that the number is too short at this point to take the under.
Yeah, there is a reason. Yeah, all the juice is on that under for the opening odds here of Game 7. Because in the 2 Game 7s played recently between the Bruins and Maple Leafs, Stars, and Golden Knights, Jeff, the under hit in both of them. Yep, the under hit in both those games as well. So yesterday on this show, you gave us Connor Brown, a little goal prop for him. Any other props that are fitting into your game script as of right now in the Sunday morning?
I mean, I think looking at Florida shot on goal props, I mean, I think that one thing, like I can't see Florida not getting more pucks on net at home. They've been a really solid team too, like just 5-on-5 most of the playoffs. They've had the play tilted a little bit more in their favor at home, even in this series. I think that looking at a guy like Matthew Tkachuk, like you could take over 2.5 shots, but I would actually prefer going to the alternate line, go over 3.5 shots on him. You're getting really good plus odds there. That's one player I would have my eye on. Vladimir Tarasenko is another one you could look to in the shot on goal props on the DraftKings Sportsbook. He had gone over his shot on goal props, Tarasenko, in 8 straight games. He only had 1 in Game 6, but again, we're on home ice now. The odds have actually come down. He was -165 before Game 6. Now he's -154 on DraftKings Sportsbook on the shot on goal props. Again, another player you can look to for the alternate lines. Tarasenko's been really good at getting a shot off in this game. So a couple shot on goal props there. If anything, I'm looking for the overs on the Florida players there. And again, if you do want one Florida goal prop, I think Alex Barkov is probably the guy I would go to. Alex Barkov, plus 285.
Jeff Ulrich, talk Conn Smythe to me right now. Who's your pick? What do you think?
I mean, Conn Smythe is this is the weirdest Conn Smythe,
right? That's why I'm asking
market that I've.
Is there an obvious choice right now?
Well, I mean, look, Connor McDavid is -3,000. So yeah, there's an obvious choice.
Yeah, I see the odds now popping up.
Yeah.
But could anyone else like sneak into this thing and take this from him?
That's the thing. It's really weird. Like McDavid was even like -300 before Game 6. And it is bizarre to see a team that, Connor McDavid's team may not win the Stanley Cup. I mean, there's a, it's like we're a 50-50 chance basically. And the odds are telling us like it doesn't matter what's going to happen in this game. McDavid's winning the Conn Smythe. I don't know if it's that clear cut and dry. If the Panthers go out and win like 4-1 and McDavid gets 0 points and Barkov goes with 3 points, you got to think like maybe Barkov gets in there. I mean, there's at least a little bit of a chance there. I don't know. I mean, Bobrovsky you could make the case maybe stops 50 shots. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think there's a little bit of a chance with Barkov. Like I said, the Panthers come out, maybe win 4-1. Barkov gets 3 points. I think that could happen, but this has been a really bizarre market. If Florida had won Game 6, you just question like would McDavid have really won it clear cut and dry? I don't know. So didn't get any points in Game 6, McDavid too. Keep that in mind, but it clearly is leaning McDavid. I'm not trying to make a case like he's not going to win it, but if anyone's going to catch him, I think it's Barkov, and it's one of those games where McDavid gets held off the point sheet again, and Barkov ends up with at least 2, potentially 3 points.
Yeah, and we talked yesterday morning on this show, Saturday morning edition of The Sweat, Jeff, like with Connor McDavid, I think he had the 4-point games in Games 4 and 5, and then nothing in Game 6. That's got to scare the crap out of the Panthers, knowing that his supporting cast is really figuring it out right now. Just take me back again to the vibes. What is the city like right now? The city of Edmonton. We know how nervous you are. What are your neighbors? What are people saying like around town right now? Is this just this nervous excitement?
It's just kind of like the calm before. It's the calm before the storm. Like the Oilers stuff is out. It was obviously hellacious the last 2 games, but it's a little bit more. Like you said, it's a little bit more nervous before this game. It's like everyone's kind of gearing up. It's like there's a hurricane on the horizon or something. I think that the whole entire city is basically going to be off on Monday. It's got that vibe where it's like everyone's just kind of preparing. It's like, what are you going to be doing? How are we getting ready for this? So definitely, I think that people are still just a little in shock that we're even in this position. But now that we're here and people have had like 2 days to think about it, now it's like, okay, like this is getting real, and people are just kind of getting prepared for potentially just going crazy on Monday night. So,
well, it's about to get real for our friend Anna Dua at NHL.com, who tweeted, Jeff, by the way, after the Oilers won Game 4. She said, if the Oilers pull off this comeback, I'm going to put maple syrup on everything that I eat for an entire year. So I'm very much looking forward to the Oilers finishing this thing off in Game 7. Jeff, I'm very much looking forward to you hanging out throughout this break and joining us next, because the Travelers Championship, we got the final round. These guys are going low. Tom Kim paired up with his best friend, Scotty Scheffler. They're teeing off here in less than 2 hours. They moved the tee times up. Let's talk odds next. folks, we talked about it at the top of the show that the Travelers Championship final round, it's underway. Tom Kim, Scotty Scheffler in that final group. Someone is likely to touch 25 under today. You know who's not in the conversation to win the Travelers is Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy withdrawing from the tournament after the meltdown last week at Pinehurst. You know, you can really sense when a golfer's starting to build momentum, is going to claim a major championship. On the flip side, you can rarely predict a collapse, especially what we saw out of Rory last Sunday. And Tony Finau, one of the biggest stars in the PGA Tour, joined Gojo and Golic earlier in the week to address the meltdown that was.
Yeah, it's the ultimate mental test. I think that's going to be a hurdle that's going to be tough to overcome mentally. He's obviously an incredible player, incredible mentally. You don't win as many tournaments as he has if you don't have both. I've missed putts to win tournaments from 10, 12 feet on the 18th green in playoffs. It sticks with me. It sticks with you for years. You know, those are things that you literally have nightmares about as a competitor that wants to win anytime you're put in that position. So this is going to be a tough one for him to overcome, but he'll be able to overcome it because he's so extremely talented, and mentally he's going to be up for the challenge. But it didn't surprise me one bit when he released a statement that he needed a few weeks off to just deal with it. You know, sports is overwhelming. You know, I think there's so many critics out there, especially in the situation Rory's in. He hasn't won a major in 10 years. And he knows that, and the whole world knows that. So every time he plays a major championship, there's that intense added pressure. So to fall short in the manner that he did, I think is extremely difficult for position for him to be in. And so, but kudos to him to know that he mentally needs a little break, and hopefully he'll be fresh to go for the Open.
Jeff Ulrich, it was another major slipping through the Northern Irishman's grips once again last weekend. He has decided to take a few weeks off. He'll eventually pop back up to defend his title there at the Scottish Open. The best case scenario for Rory McIlroy after Pinehurst, what is it, Jeff?
The best case?
Yeah.
I mean, he has a solid Scottish Open and then he wins the Open. I mean, that's the best case, and he just gets this major championship hump off his back. I mean, he just need that. That's really the only good case. I mean, Rory can win as many other events as he wants at this point. He judges himself, and the world judges him right now by if he wins another major, and that's pretty much it. It's very harsh, but that's just how good he is as well as a player. That it basically comes down to these 4 tournaments every year.
Yeah, getting over the hump mentally, my guess would be it's going to be a little more difficult. What's the worst case scenario here for Roy? That he just never wins another major?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like I'm saying that's the best case scenario. I'm not necessarily sure that's what's going to happen. As Tony Finau just alluded to, as we saw, like these things can hang with you. Rory, I think that if Rory doesn't, overcome this quickly, I mean, he may have difficulties at the Open. I don't think it's a given that he's just going to have a ton of success at the Open, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's certainly scar tissue that could just affect him in his play at the Open. And then he'll just have this long off season to dwell over it. And maybe he needs that off season to get over it. That's perfectly fine. I think at this point, you do have to temper your expectations a bit. So, I mean, we're either going to have a very quick rebound where we've got this player at the height of his game. He knows he's playing well. He knows he missed an opportunity, but he's going to have another opportunity in less than a month now to get over it. Or it's just going to be another long summer, long fall, long winter until we get back to the Masters and see if he can put it together then.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in between right now with where I lean with Rory.
Okay, yeah. He's currently still has the second best odds in the DraftKings Sportsbook. Looking at the odds boards right now, plus 700 there at the Open. Scotty is the favorite. To win the Travelers today, Jeff. Big storyline in my eyes yesterday. It got some attention early on in the day until Scotty and Tom Kim started doing their thing. We finally found out the medicine for Cameron Young to smile is for him to shoot a historic 59, I think the 13th player in PGA Tour history. But Jeff, the reason I bring that up, besides Cameron Young making history, is this is a course where a guy you're not even thinking about a little further down the board can all of a sudden go off and challenge guys who are at the top of the leaderboard. Could you see any kind of magic like that today? And a guy going low, not saying another 59, but someone going low and challenging the beast that is Scotty Scheffler and his best friend Tom Kim in that final group.
Right, yeah. Don't forget about his best friend Tom Kim.
Well, they are good. They are good friends. They ate at Sally's Pizza the other night, and they share the same birthday.
They do, and
that's big.
It's a thing. Like I wasn't trying to like make fun of you. I mean, it is a thing.
You typically do.
I know usually I do, but look, absolutely. I mean, you've got to temper expectations a bit. Like, I mean, it's Sunday. You know, the greens are probably going to be a little bit firmer. Probably the pin position is going to be a little tougher. I don't know if there's going to be another 59 out there, but certainly we've seen at this event, Jim Furyk did shoot 58 in the final round in 2016. The course has not changed that much. They changed it a little bit. Clearly, they didn't change it enough, because if Cameron Young can go out there and shoot 59, this is a really simple course for the pros. I think that like Tony Finau, the guy we just talked about, who was just talking on the show, does stick out a little bit. He's at 14. He's been gaining a ton of strokes on approach. He's at plus 3,500. I wouldn't want to venture too much further back, but Finau being at minus 14, 4 shots back, certainly like a 61 or a 60, I think is in his range. And that could happen. Absolutely. And I think, like I said, he's at least been striking the ball well enough. You always worry about his upside with the putter, but my God, if he just gets on the speed, for one day, I mean, he can go out and shoot 61 on almost any course. So Finau sticks out. I think the other name people would probably gravitate there is Patrick Cantlay. He's at 13, so 5 back, but certainly he has gone low on these courses as well. Finau and Cantlay, a little bit underperforming this week. I mean, they're not really underperforming. They're playing well. They're just a shot or two back of like being really in contention, but certainly 2 guys who could go low. They wouldn't necessarily be my pick, though. I think if you're going into the odds today, I'd just go up a little bit further and try and get a guy within like 2 or 3 shots.
Okay, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Sungjae was a dude I gave out on the show yesterday. He was at 28-1 odds. He's now down to 11-1. I think he is 3 shots back, Jeff. So if there is someone within 3 shots, your choice du jour would be who? Colin, did you see the 6 spin that he put on that one shot? And then he tweeted out later last night, he's like, I pulled it. It's like, didn't even really mean to do that.
Look, Sungjae is actually 2 shots back. I think we both sort of agreed that Sungjae was the play at plus 2,800. And again, I would venture to say that like Sungjae is the play again. His irons have been really good this week. That was the one thing that concerned me. I did like him for top 10, top 20 before the event, just for the simple fact his putting and short game has been so good. And he tends to just show up at these softer courses so often. I'm not sure if he'll ever be like a good US Open player, but Sungjae when you get him at like the Travelers, the Wyndham Championship, whatever. I mean, he tends to like these lower scoring events, and that's what we've got here. So plus 1,100, I think he's actually played better than like Batia, who's just kind of seems to be not be getting lucky, but just been putting the lights out. I'm not sure if that lasts for another round. I definitely like going Sungjae at plus 1,100. I think you're either looking to take Tom Kim with a 1-shot lead at plus 330, or you should be looking to Sungjae. That's kind of my feeling on the outright market going into round 4.
All right, so I was going to ask you if I made you pick between Scotty and Kim. Kim, who has been the best player all week long in all the right areas. He's holding putts, Jeff, with consistency. He's splitting fairways. He's striking his approach shots close. You would go Kim over Scheffler right now. And they tee off at 11:15. They move this thing up hours because they've dealt with weather issues all week.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I would. Again, like you've got the 1-shot lead, and it's not like we're getting 50-50. It's not like both these guys are minus 110. Tom Kim is plus 330 to win. Scotty Scheffler's plus 160. And I'm not suggesting that like the odds are too short on Scheffler. He should be the favorite, but with the 1-shot lead, with the guy who's won twice with Tom Kim, very talented player. No, absolutely, man. I would take Tom Kim in this spot. I think it's his style of course. He's just made no mistakes, and I just don't really see why that's going to change going into round 4.
All right, we got about a minute to go. Are there any? I love that Tom Kim caravan graphic. It will live
in pretty good graphic.
Infamy here. Yeah, absolutely. There's College Emerson at the front. You're in the back with Jesse, and then there's Len Hochberg just kind of floating around. People are like, where the hell did you come from, Len? Any other props, top 5, top 10, anything like that, Jeff, before we go to break? About 45 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll throw out a few placement props here. I like Tom Hoagie today as well. I think he target him in matchups, but he's plus 240 for a top 10. He's first in strokes gained approach going into round 4. He's been hitting his irons just beautifully. He's a great iron player. The putter just hasn't woken up. He's really not that bad a putter. He's just kind of having a bad week, but would not shock me to see a little bit of positive regression there on the greens for him for one round. I think that, we talked about Sungjae versus Colin Morikawa plus 140 in a matchup bet. Like that, I don't mind those odds at all. I know it's Morikawa, but I certainly don't mind that. And then last one, I'll give out Sahith Theegala. Actually, he's already teed off. I've got a top 5 bet. Justin Thomas for a top 5 plus 280.
Okay.
I think if you pair him with Tom Hoagie, I think you're gonna have a good chance of getting one of those bets. So 280 on Thomas, 240 on Hoagie. Like both those placement bets.
Again, people, a lot of the big stars already underway. Leaders go off at 11:15 Eastern Time. Jeff Ulrich, thanks so much. Godspeed. Stay cool, calm, and collected ahead of Puck Drop tomorrow night. That's right, our nation's birthday right around the corner. So let's talk some glizzy guzzling next.
you gotta separate the meats.
Yeah.
And you can either do 1 or 2 meats at once.
Okay.
And then one separate.
Okay. So when I do this, I need you guys kind of coaching me through it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so what do I start with? Do I start with the meat or do I start with the meat? All right. Here we go.
Okay, so you want to bite, kind of sever when you feel like you can swallow what's in your mouth. Very minimal chewing. You're just going to swallow, bite, kind of pull that off.
That other hand should be dunking the bun.
And then now while you're doing that, do that with the last third of the 2 hot dogs. Dunk 1 bun.
He's like, okay. That's different. Sure.
Dunk the tip. Okay, you want to go full force. It's not pretty. But I like you're taking initiative. You're doing a lot better than
just the bun is just a chaser. Those are the hot dogs.
It's interesting.
Was that last year or before that?
I think it was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. I remember watching that in the moment and being like, for somebody that's as big of a hot dog guy as you, that was pathetic.
Because I don't competitively eat hot dogs. I could sit there.
It's either your brand or it's not.
It is my brand, but I enjoy them as I eat them. Mickey and her husband, Nick, 2 of the best competitive eaters in the world, they do it for money. And we're going to have Nick on this week or next weekend on next weekend's show because right now, big story has been, Jules, there is no Joey Chestnut in the competition this year. There is some beef between he and Major League Eating, but Nick is going to join the show, and we're going to dive into, I don't know if odds will be posted yet on the DK Sportsbook, but he's very good friends with Joey, and there are still rumbles that maybe Joey makes one of those WWE entrances if he and MLE can kind of squash their differences, and, by God, that's Joey Chestnut's music, and he comes out. But also, for betting purposes, you love betting this. Bettors love betting the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. All of a sudden, this thing is kind of wide open. So before you could put all your cash on Joey, but now there's Nick.
If you wanted to lay minus $1 million, you could.
Yeah, but now there is Nick. There's Esper. There's a couple other guys who have been winning tournaments in and out. So throughout the season at some of the other events. So it will be interesting to hear what Nick has to say. So make sure you're watching the Sweat next weekend because July 4th is coming. That'll be the following Thursday. That's our country's birthday. And I hope that you will, actually you won't be here. You won't be here to enjoy it.
Whoa, I'm on the show next week.
Oh, you are on the show next week. I'm sorry. I totally forgot about that.
Thank you.
So we have a lot of hot dog content that will be arriving next week.
I love firing in a hot dog bet on July 4th.
You were sending me
very
pictures.
American.
You were at some cookout yesterday, and this guy was sending me pictures of just platters of hot dogs.
There were a lot of hot dogs
and
at
it
the third
looked
birthday
amazing.
party I attended.
You ate a lot of food yesterday, even some lobster bisque, all sorts of stuff. I can't imagine how your body is feeling.
It's a big day for me yesterday.
It was. This has been a big day for us here on The Sweat. We have covered quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have hung out with us the entire time, and it's okay if you have not. So we've delivered to you, Jules has an NBA draft preview. You want to talk about something that's wide open like the hot dog contest, the NBA draft, Travelers Championship. Jeff just got off the air, kind of trying to steer you in the right direction on the DK Sportsbook ahead of the final round. Again, leaders teeing off at 11:15 Eastern time this morning. And then some college football best bets. We know what a Utah Utes fan you are, but you were taking us through some of the other week 1 games that you should hop on right now. What's up?
Yeah, the first one is just that Thursday night primetime game when UNC goes to Minnesota. I just think it's such a good spot in terms of it being the first game of the year. You get the national spotlight on it. You have one of the youngest, most inexperienced teams in college football going to play at an experienced team. A team that plays defense in Minnesota, runs the ball in Minnesota. Again, not the best team in terms of win total. It's, will they, won't they make a bowl. But in terms of UNC and that inexperience and losing Drake May going there early in the season, that was the first college football game that I bet for week 1. That one jumped out to me right away.
Again, I'm betting North Dakota State against
we got a number.
Colorado. We have a number. I have done my research over the past hour. North Dakota State getting 8 points there on the road against Colorado. And Colorado has made a lot of headlines in the offseason, some for the right reasons, mostly for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
Would you have a lean in that game right now? People want to see Colorado fail.
They do?
People, yes, absolutely. There are more haters for that program than lovers.
Everybody was betting them.
Well, they had
year.
that hot start, like 4-0, blowing teams out, and then they kind of came crashing back down to earth when conference play started.
I think a lot of people are going to want to bet on Colorado again.
Okay.
I think people like betting Colorado, even if the narrative changed a little bit. Shador's back there. They've got a good offense again. I think Colorado's going to drive handle yet again.
Remind the folks at home watching right now, too, what advice you have if they're considering betting the NBA draft, 2-day event, round 1 Wednesday night, round 2 Thursday night, really no surefire number 1 overall pick. A couple deets for him right now. What do you got?
Yeah, if you want to throw a dart at the first overall pick, the favorite has been flopping around, and you've got a guy like Klingon who's still plus 170, but picking up steam to potentially go 1. I'll throw a dart at number 1 and go Stephon Castle, who I personally have 50-1 and 70-1. He's currently sitting 30-1. We know a lot more about him than a lot of these other prospects, and there's a narrative that he can't go 1 because he plays the wing, and you already have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. But are you going to have those guys long term? And who's to say that Stephon Castle can't fit in some fashion with whatever? You want to make it a Murray-Castle backcourt and move on from Trae Young. I think there's, again, no information there, but I think 30-1 is a little bit long when this kid's been picking up quite a bit of steam in the NBA draft. And the other one during the draft segment we did earlier that I would probably narrow down as my favorite bet isn't on the board anymore. We were talking Rob Dillingham in that slide. He opened 5.5. He was sitting 9.5. When I just scrolled through it, I did not see Rob Dillingham's prop in the draft position over under. So what that tells me is that there's some liability there and it could get adjusted. But keep an eye if Rob Dillingham pops back on the board over 9.5 at anything under like minus 180. I'd probably be looking at that one.
All right, so keep an eye on the DK Sportsbook for that. People can keep an eye on your Twitter account as well for any NBA draft information
We'll have
they're looking for.
another article this week.
If they follow you on Twitter, yesterday they saw that you were pushing out some baseball bets, and when it's all said and gone and you have crossed the rainbow bridge, people are going to look back and say, that was the guy who went 2-0 on his baseball bets that one Saturday, June 22nd in the year 2024. What were your bets again today, your baseball bets? Because with Steve not here, we need to get some baseball in.
We're going to go with these two. We're going to go with Pirates first 5 laying the half run.
Skeens Day.
On Skeens Day. I think that's minus 125 neighborhood, laying the half run on the first 5 with Skeens, who's been tremendous. Sival, not quite as much for Tampa. And then we're going Nats. First 5 money line. Washington Nationals at Colorado Rockies. Rockies won last night's game in a walk-off pitch clock.
No.
Yeah.
I totally missed that. Are you kidding me?
I missed it as well.
That was a big fear of people in the postseason, that happening. But
yeah.
Because we've seen it in spring training. Was that the first time it had happened in a regular season game since the pitch clock was introduced?
Maybe if we had a baseball analyst in-house like Steve Buchanan, we'd know
I'm
things
sorry,
like
I thought
that.
you were that guy now. Hey, you're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a nice little revenge narrative for Washington, but just big starting pitching advantage there, and the Nats haven't been too shabby this year.
All right. Well, also, while we are here, I have a show announcement. I'm going to stick to script so I don't get in trouble for this, folks. We will be taking a break on The Sweat, from The Sweat, on VSiN, and on DraftKings Network after next week so we can get ready to bring all of you guys and gals some awesome, fantastic content and programming during football season. So you will still find us here contributing to shows like Gojo and Golic everywhere on DKNetwork.com. And you can always follow Jules and myself especially for hot dog content on Twitter, now known as X.
I don't know. Your hot dog abilities went down in my book.
So you can tail all these guys, and then when their bets don't hit, you can emotionally abuse them on Twitter.
It's fine by me.
Cesspool of an app. But we want to thank all of you for watching. Jesse and I helped launch this show with a ton of people behind the scenes like 6-7 years ago. You were part of it. We were in a pantry in the old office. The best part about that was you could go right outside.
Food was really close.
And the food was right there. I could stick my arm outside the room, grab a stick of beef jerky, maybe stick my hand into the cereal bowl.
Who wouldn't want to work in those conditions?
But we've still got 2 more shows to go next Saturday and Sunday morning. I think we'll be back to our original studio. Lots of good bets to hand out. Looking forward to a lot of college football bets that you're going to be dishing out.
I
So
will have a college football futures segment next week.
that is going to be electric content for sure. So we will see all of you back here on The Sweat, final Saturday and Sunday morning editions on DraftKings Network and VSiN, 8 o'clock Eastern Time to 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You had something else to say?
I was just going to say, if you want to find content from Steve and I, DK Network.
You're
We're going to be ramping up the written. You are
getting emotional. I am happy for you.
I don't get emotional. We're going to be ramping up the
dead inside.
written content, though. A lot of articles from Steve and I on the site.
That's right.
And you can find my emotionless articles rather than me emotionless on camera.
All right, folks. Let's cash some bets today. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We love you. Mean it.
I do like cashing bets.